What's up everyone? Colten Montgomery here with Team Discmania. I want to show you guys what's in my cart, so I'm here to show you what I'll be throwing for the 2022 season. First off, my throwing putters. I carry 3 tactics. First up, the Razor Claw 2. I want to first give a big shout out to Lure Discs, one of my new sponsors this year. You're going to see a ton of their dies in my bag. But Razor Claw 2, I'm throwing this one for my most overstable tactic. Anytime I put this thing on any bit of hyzer, it just wants to go left or right for the forehand. So Razor Claw 2. Up next, I'm throwing an Exo Soft tactic. This is pretty new to the bag. One of my go-to forehand discs, and if I ever need something to go left off the tee, this is what I'm reaching for. And then my last tactic I'm carrying, I like to call this the Warp Tour because it is just massively warped. I've had this in the bag for about a year and a half now, and it doesn't even fly like a tactic. It's super straight backhand, and I don't get a ton of power on my forehands, so it's something that I can put a little bit of ante on the forehand, and it'll hold that ante and then just fight back to flat. So those are the tactics that I'm throwing for the 2022 season. Up next into my throwing links, I carry one Lux link. This is a totally different link than all the other ones that I've got. It first started off nice and straight with a reliable, overstable finish, but I've had this in the bag for a while, so it's really, really straight. I can torque on it really hard and never really have to worry about it turning over. Next, I'm carrying a brand new Arctic Fang, fairly new to the bag, and it's a step down in stability from the Lux link. So again, I can throw this thing pretty hard, and it's just gonna go straight with a little bit of left finish, not as much as the Lux. You know, on the shorter up shots, I can put it on a little bit of an anhyzer and it'll pan back to flat. So really loving the Arctic Fang. And the last Arctic Fang I've got, another throwing link. This has been in my bag the longest. It's finally got to the point where it's nice hyzer flip to flat disc. This is one that I'm gonna be throwing a lot on up shots, and anytime I need a nice straight tee shot under 250 feet, this is the link that I'll be throwing. Now into the putting links. Of course, I putt with 2 of my Arctic Fangs. These are ones that Lure Discs have dyed up for me, and they've got something figured out with that baseline dye that they've got. So I'm rocking the purples right now. I've been rocking them for the beginning part of the season, so I love the little added tackiness that these Arctic Fangs have compared to a regular stock link. So if you haven't checked out the Arctic Fang yet, make sure and check them out, and thank you guys for supporting me. Going into my mid-ranges, I don't bag that many mid-ranges, but what I've got seems to get the job done. First up, I'm throwing the Kyle Klein Midnight Prowl. This is a Meta Origin. I don't throw it a lot because it's super flippy, but in the woods, it's something that I can pop on a nice hyzer, watch it flip over to flat, and that's just a mid-range disc that I don't have any other mid-range that'll fly like this. So Midnight Prowl, super easy to throw, really beginner friendly, and anything that I need to hold right, I'll be throwing the Midnight Prowl. Next up, I'm throwing 2 MD1s. Since these released around Christmas time, it's been an absolute staple in my bag. One of the most neutral discs I've ever thrown. If I throw it on that hyzer, it's gonna glide on that hyzer angle. Throw it straight, it's gonna go straight. Pop it out a little anhyzer, it's gonna hold that anhyzer. So this red one I've got is the first one I got, so it's getting a little bit beat in, you know, we'll hold that anhyzer a little bit more. And then the purple one is pretty brand new to the bag. It has a little bit more stability, but you know, I figure may as well beat another one in while I can. Next, I'm carrying 2 MD3s, the Eagle McMahon Iron Samurai 3. This is pretty much exactly what I want in an MD3. It's got a little bit of dome to it. I can throw this thing nice and hard, and it's gonna go pretty dead straight with that reliable left finish. It's not too glidey, another pretty much point and shoot disc, but I know that it's gonna always finish to the left. I carry one more C-Line MD3, the new Italian blend. This is surprisingly stable. It has that little bit of a hook at the end, you know, so I can throw it nice and hard, even a little bit of Annie, and it's gonna finish to flat. So again, C-Line MD3, another staple in my mid-range lineup. Next up, I'm throwing a Lux Method. This is the next step up from my MD3s. It's not super overstable, but it's something less overstable than my Mutant. You know, have a little bit of a headwind or left to right, and I know I can throw it hard and not really worry about it turning over or anything like that. Worst that'll happen, it'll go a little bit straight, but the Method since last year has been a big staple in my bag, and I'm really loving the Lux version of it. Last mid-range I'm carrying is the Neo Mutant. This thing is just a complete hog. It doesn't go very far. All it wants to do is turn left, so I never have to worry about it turning over. You know, really good forehand disc, backhand disc, but just, it's nice to have a disc like this in the bag that's reliable and you know what it's gonna do every single time. So Neo Mutant, nice overstable addition to my mid-range lineup. Now onto my fairway drivers. This is probably where I have the most discs in this category. So to start off, I carry one Neo Splice. This thing is so overstable, not to the point where it's unthrowable, but throwing into a headwind or a nice, you know, knife over forehand, skip shots, Neo Splice is what I'm gonna be reaching for. I only carry one of them just because, you know, it's so overstable. I don't really feel like I need to carry anything more than one of them. And of course, shout out to Kyle Klein. He's got his Triumph series from the Idlewild Open last year. So next fairways I'm throwing, I'm carrying two of the new C-Line FDs. In my opinion, this is the best version of an FD that Discmania has ever come out with. I've got one of them that's a little bit domey, nice and straight. I've had it in the bag for a while, so it's getting to the point where it's a nice hyzer flip to turnover disc. When I first had it, it was pretty straight with an overstable finish. Next, I'm throwing this Merlot FD. It's nice and flat, firm, probably the closest thing to a second run FD that I've ever thrown. I can throw it nice and hard. It's gonna go dead straight with that reliable left finish. You know, if there's a little bit of wind, it might stand up a little bit, but between these two FDs, there's not a gap that I'm not confident hitting. So shout out to Discmania for absolutely hitting a home run with this new FD mold. And yeah, just real big fan of this. If you guys haven't checked them out, make sure and try and grab one. And the most important part to my bag, the PDs. I carry 6 PDs. Some might call that overkill, but there's a reason this is my signature disc. I just feel like anything that an FD can't do, a PD will do. So there's no other mold that I find the need to be throwing. So let's get right into them. First off, I carry a super beat up Lone Howl 2. This is one of the first ones I've ever got. As you can tell from the stamp, it's almost gone. But this is a little bit more domey than the normal Lone Howl 2s that I've got. And this thing is different than all the rest. I throw it on a nice hyzer and watch it stand up to flat and hold that anhyzer. Definitely the flippiest PD I've got in the bag, but nice flippy Lone Howl 2. Also good for some scramble forehand shots through the woods. Next, I'm throwing one of the new C-Line PDs. These haven't dropped to the public yet. This one right here, it's got some dome to it and it is super overstable. I compare it kind of to a 13th run PD. You know, I can throw it really hard into wind, never really have to worry about turning it over. So the new C-Line PD in that Italian plastic, I'm really excited for these to be coming out. Next, I'm throwing another Lone Howl 2. This is probably my straightest, most thrown Lone Howl 2. You know, I can throw it nice and hard. It might stand up to flat, never really turn over. And then like all Lone Howl 2s, has that nice, reliable left finish. So really loving that one. We've got another Lone Howl 2. As you can tell, I love my Lone Howls and my PDs. This is next step up from that green one I just showed. Recently, I've really loved the Lone Howls for a forehand. Just feels nice and comfortable in my hand, something that I can trust. and still get decent distance on it. So Lone Howl 2. Next, I'm throwing an OG Lone Howl 1. If you're a PD thrower, throw the Lone Howls, you'll know that this run is a little bit more straight than the Lone Howl 2. This is, you know, from that very first one I showed, that's nice and understable. This one's not quite that understable, but if I put it on an ante, it'll definitely fight back to flat, and good for my forehands if I need something to go a little bit straighter before it hooks. And then the last PD I've got, maybe one of the spiciest dyes I've ever seen. This is the Techno Lore Icy Sea Line PD. It's not quite as overstable as the blue one that I showed because it doesn't have that crazy dome on it, but it's nice and reliable. I can throw it really hard, watch it go straight for about 350 feet before it dumps left. So again, new Italian Sea Line PD. They've become workhorses in my bag. And that is a wrap for my fairway drivers, so let's get into the distance drivers. Now let's get into my distance drivers. Again, not much variation here between molds, but I've got something that's gonna cover the whole spectrum of what I need to fly. So first up, I've got a prototype Sea Line DD3. This thing started off really overstable at first, but now it's beat into a nice, just straight to overstable flyer. I can throw it pretty hard. It might stand up to flat depending on the wind, but it's always got that reliable left-hand finish, and this is one of the furthest DD3s that I've got in the bag, and it's just super reliable for me. Next up, another Techno Lore. This is a 170 gram Cloudbreaker 3, one of the only non-max weight discs in my bag. I really like this thing because I can throw it hard on a nice hyzer and it's gonna stand up to flat. So get some turn out of this one. Probably my farthest flying DD3 disc in the bag. You know, no other disc in the bag is really flying as far as this one. So, and then of course, for the forehands, with the lack of power I have, it's something that I can put on a little bit of anhyzer, it'll hold and get that full flight. So really liking this one. Compared to all the other DD3s, it's a little bit more gummy, it's not as firm, so just feels really good in the hand and a nice reliable disc for me. Next up, I'm carrying a stock S-Line DD3. This is 173 to 175, so kind of on the lighter side of things, but it's got a nice pop top to it, and for my forehand, I just feel like I can throw this thing on a really good amount of hyzer, and it's still gonna get some distance. Backhand, it's pretty flippy for me, but again, I've got a couple discs in here that are just, I keep in here for my forehand. Yeah, this one's just a straight bomber, you know, one of the farthest forehand discs that I've got. Next up, another Cloudbreaker 3. The blue one, in my experience, is the most understable of the Cloudbreaker 3s. It feels pretty similar to all the other ones, maybe not as domey, but it definitely has some turn to it. So even flippier than my Techno Lore, and this one is max weight. I can throw it on a hyzer and literally just watch it hold to the right. So really liking that for, you know, tailwind max distance crushes. Not done with the Cloudbreaker 3s yet. I've got this white one, which again, in my experience, is the most overstable. It's got a nice pop top, heartbeat to it, and I can throw this thing really hard. It might stand up to flat, maybe get a little bit of turn, but it always fights back. You know, it's got that overstable finish right at the end of the flight. So this one, very overstable, goes very far. And then last Cloudbreaker 3, as you can tell, I'm really liking these things. This is probably my most neutral one. Pretty much any angle I put it on, it's gonna hold. You know, if I put it on a hyzer, it doesn't really stand up and turn right for me. If I put it on an ante, it'll hold the ante, but this has been a really good, reliable forehand disc for me, you know, if I need something that's gonna hold up a little bit more in the wind. And then, like I said, just very neutral, trusted a lot off the tee pad. And then the last 3 distance drivers that I've got, I carry one Neo Enigma. This thing is really good for my forehand because I can put it on a really good amount of hyzer and just watch it drift to the right, maybe stand up a little bit for me. Neo Enigma, really good distance roller disc, and good for those shots that I need to just hold to the right. Then I carry 2 PD2s. I've got a C-Line PD2. It used to be the Blizzard C-Line stamp. It's obviously not Blizzard, it's 175 grams, but it's nice and flat, feels really gummy in the hand. It's just something that I can throw really hard, low, flat, and it's never really gonna turn over. It might get to flat. Really loving this C-Line PD2. Last year I kind of lost my love for them. I wasn't throwing them a ton, but this year I've relied on this a lot so far. And last disc in the cart right now is the Luster PD2. This thing, if you know anything about PD2s, you know that this is an absolute beefcake. I throw it into ripping headwinds and I think, oh, you know, it's not gonna finish left, and this thing always finds a way to finish left. So more of a utility disc, but something that I'm really glad that I keep in the bag for trustworthy shots. And it's important to have something in the bag that you know isn't gonna flip over on you. So Luster PD2, beefcake. Well, that's a wrap on my 2022 in the cart. As you can see, I carry a lot of discs, but not a ton of molds. You know, I like to really keep my bag simple. You know, I'm really comfortable with my DD3s, my PDs, and all my mid-ranges. So I want to thank Discmania for supporting me the last 5 years. I want to thank Ridge Roller Customs for giving me this beautiful cart to pull all my Frisbees. And big shout out to Lore for giving me the spiciest bag out here on tour. You know, I love all these dies. They mean a lot to me. And so yeah, thank you to all my sponsors. Thank you Discmania for making this all happen. If you haven't got an Arctic Fang yet, make sure to go to Discmania's website. I think there's still some in stock. And thank you guys for all the love and support.